Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Lamarca, Managing Director of Production at the Bardavon, and welcome to the fifth episode of HVP's Behind the Music. I just wanted to welcome you today, and we'll be discussing the upcoming May 14th concert of the HVP, which will feature guest conductor Andre Raphael, who I'll be speaking with today. The program also features works by Mendelssohn, Korngold, Abner Dorman, doing his new violin concerto that'll be performed by Lara St John, who'll be joining us also, and a piece by Richard Danielpour. I hope you all enjoy it and look forward to seeing you in person at the Bardavon. Thanks. So I'd like to just welcome the guest conductor of our upcoming May 14th concert, Andre Raphael. Welcome, Andre. It's really nice to have you here today with me.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be with you.
Andre, you began studying music at age 11 and went on to get your Bachelor of Music from the University of Miami and your master's degree at Yale. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your initial interests, I imagine, were in becoming a soloist. And when did that shift to your focus being on becoming a conductor?
Well, it's very interesting because I came to music through the trombone was my instrument, actually. And I played it because it was the instrument that no one else wanted to play. And what happened was in that process, I discovered that the trombones weren't really used in a lot of repertoire, like, some repertoire by Mozart, Haydn, no trombones. And I felt that there was this need to express something about the music. And so that sort of led me to this whole world of the idea of conducting and what a conductor was and what it meant somehow. It's interesting because, I came to this I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, and I came to music through the public school system there. And, the whole experience for me with being in public school and at the same time playing in the Duke Youth Symphony, which was at Duke University, was really formative in terms of, sort of planting the seed about music and the power of music, and ultimately about the possibility of becoming a conductor. And so even when I first started in undergrad, University of Miami, I had this idea that I didn't know quite how it was going to happen, but I had this idea that I was going to pursue conducting.
That's very cool. Yeah. While you were studying at Curtis, I think you might have met our soloist at the upcoming concert, Lara St John, who'll be performing Abner Dorman's new violin concerto number 2. Have you performed any of Dorman's works before? We've done some pieces here with the orchestra, and really, I thought they were just really wonderful. I was just wondering if you've had experience conducting his work before.
I have indeed. In Wheeling, we did his work, Prayer for the Innocents. It's wonderful work for string orchestra. And, I was very taken by his musical language, about the way he communicates things. I find it to be incredibly well constructed music. It's challenging also, which is nice. It's good, and being able to present this work, of course, with Lara, who was a colleague of mine at Curtis, is just wonderful because as you grow as a conductor, you somehow these relationships that were so much a part of your formative years, they come back around. And so to be able to share then this piece by Abner with Lara as soloist is really something I'm very much looking forward to.
Have you worked with Lara specifically before? I know you were colleagues together at Curtis, but did you work together on other pieces before? Or
We've not worked together before as conductor and soloist, so to speak. Um, but again, I think back to those early years, at Curtis, and I always remember her personality. And, I think back to those days when um, I would be conducting the laboratory orchestra, which was the conductor's orchestra, and she would be playing in the violin section, or to those days when she was playing in the Curtis Symphony Orchestra. And, just the sort of communication that she always had. She was always very attentive and very curious. And so it makes it all the more intriguing then for us to be able to do this, to do Dorman's work, this Violin Concerto number 2.
Nice. Well, we had Lara as a soloist with the orchestra here, as it turned out 15 years ago. I looked it up because I spoke to her about this piece, and that'll be playing a little later in the broadcast. And it was great to reconnect with her. And I just remember she was a really passionate performer, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her do this work. And it's going to be fun having you two reconnect over this piece too. So that'll be really nice for the audience, I think. I want to talk about you. You were the conductor laureate and former music director for 15 years of the Wheeling Symphony Orchestra. You've served as assistant conductor of St. Louis Symphony, the Philadelphia Orchestra, and for 2 years as the assistant conductor to Kurt Masur at the New York Phil. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about that experience as a conductor. That must have been, a great thing to be able to be studying under someone like that. I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah. It was an incredible experience, that period of time, which was for me something like 11 years in total, with St. Louis, Great St. Louis Symphony, with Philadelphia Orchestra, and finally with the wonderful New York Philharmonic. Different because each of those experiences, there was something new that was gained from them. When I arrived in St. Louis, Leonard Slatkin was the music director at that point. And the orchestra was really incredible at putting together programs that were just so challenging. Lots of American music, lots of new music, world premieres, you name it. The programming was so creative. That's where I learned about programming, was in St. Louis. And it comes as no secret to many who know the business that Maestro Slatkin is one of the best in the business. So, to be there and to understand sound, and from that tradition also, that great tradition in St. Louis that they have, that was a real, formative place. The experience in Philadelphia was very different because, of course, I had been to school at Curtis, and Philly is in my bones. What can I say? But being the assistant with that orchestra and understanding from the inside so much of the great traditions of sound, not just the string playing, which is terrific, but the wind sound, and to understand that whole sort of history and how it worked. This was where I felt, for me in any case, that the grounding in the real standard repertoire really happened. The understanding of how to play Mahler stylistically, how to play Strauss, how to go for sound. I learned so much from working with that orchestra. And, we've had a relationship since my tenure there as assistant, which has been really nice to go back and work with them. And so then I guess that would lead us to then the experience with the New York Philharmonic and Kurt Masur, who was somehow just a giant in terms of not only our profession, but our world. He had a real humanitarian spirit about him, and working alongside him, not only in the city, in Manhattan, but also on tour with him. It was a life-changing experience being with him and the orchestra. He was one of those people, he could just walk in the room. And I've experienced this with a couple of people that I've worked with. He could walk in the room and you had the feeling that before he even lifted his hands, the sound of the orchestra changed. It was incredible. And so to be a part of this sort of, strength, and this level, this depth of musicianship, it can't help but have an impact on one. And it certainly did on me. I there are performances with him conducting and times we shared over lunch that I will never forget. They will stay with me forever. So that's sort of the the experience of those three positions that formed me, was a part of my formative years.
Yeah, and you could see that they all gave you something really valuable to keep and to take forward, because those are all kind of inspiring individual chapters that led to, where you are now, which is really, it's amazing to have the opportunity. And I love the story about the palpable change of energy in the room, when Kurt walked in. It's inspiring. Really, 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 really interesting. Andre, when we were first discussing this program, one of the suggested pieces that you brought to the table was Richard Danielpour's Adagio for String Orchestra. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about that piece and about working with Richard, as I know that you actually conducted the world premiere of the Adagio.
Yes. This work is such a special one. You mentioned my tenure as music director of the Wheeling Symphony, and now, of course, as conductor laureate. One of the works, of course, as you mentioned, that we had the opportunity to give the world premiere of was the Adagio for String Orchestra. But also, over our time, those 15 years, we also gave the world premiere of Richard's triptych from Margaret Garner, as well as his Come Up from the Fields Father, based on Walt Whitman. And it was interesting because this was the first of them, the Adagio, and it was commissioned by the Wheeling Symphony in honor of the 50th anniversary of Wheeling Jesuit University. It was Wheeling Jesuit University at that time. And so to have done this work, the Adagio, and then to later have done the triptych from Margaret Garner gives one a bit of perspective, the triptych from the opera, Margaret Garner, because there are elements in this Adagio which, clearly were influenced, the opera was in mind, and clearly, it has this Adagio is gorgeous, has this real lyrical singing quality about it. It also has this arc that's sort of like the Barber Adagio, it builds to this really intense climax and then in many ways dissipates once again. And it was, the relationship with Richard is a real friendship. We've known each other for so long. I've done, a great deal of his music, including this piece. And it's also one of those relationships that's been very rich in terms of, what I've taken. I think we've, each taken a little bit maybe from each other, each, discovered things. But, the sort of connection that I feel to his music and to him as a person is very special. And so when we began talking about this program, and you mentioned some of the concepts for the program, I thought it would be great to be able to share this program with this work with your audiences.
Yeah, it really does fit the whole theme, and I think it's a beautiful piece. So I think everyone's going to really enjoy hearing it. We're going to cut away really briefly to a clip of Richard speaking about his work, and then we'll be right back. Okay?
Great.
A lot of people see me as an American composer. They don't realize that, I've got 28 generations of Persian ancestors behind me. So it's, I'm really truly the first generation American in my family. And they don't, you know, a lot of people who know my music don't know that about me necessarily. I've kept my Persian ancestry at a distance when it came to the music I was writing until recently. I was born in the United States. My parents came from Iran when they were fairly young. My mother, toward the end of World War II, with her family, courtesy a U.S. cargo ship carrying wounded Marines through the Pacific. And my father came to New York to go to college at the age of 16. And they met in New York and were married there. I went to Iran once at the age of 7 in 1963. It was the same year of the Kennedy assassination. And we were there for about 11 months. It was a difficult time for a number of reasons, but perhaps because of the intensity of the time spent there, my memory, both visual and oral, is very clear. And so that was a real repository for me, a repository of information and sound when I started to become interested in going back to my ancestral pool. The turning points for me that got me interested in writing in this way. I began writing a piece in 2009 for a trio that was based in Philadelphia, piano, cello, and flute. And the title of the piece is Remembering Neda. Neda Sultan was the woman who most of us in the United States saw murdered on CNN, courtesy of a telephone camera. And during this period when the validity of those elections were being challenged, my mother, who is still very much alive and living in Florida, was giving me information about what was actually going on there. And she was speaking about how a quiet but nonetheless determined counter-revolution was being pulled together by mostly the women of the country. And I thought this was extraordinary, to have a Gandhian counter-revolution being led by women. Of course, they're the citizens of that country who have had the most to lose in this male-dominated theocratic environment. Nonetheless, I wrote the piece and found myself appropriating ideas from my memory of that time that I was a child. I wasn't writing necessarily tunes or incorporating melodies and rhythms from that period, but rather it was my memory of those rhythms and melodies. And they're probably a little bit better than the original melodies, because that's what happens when things gestate in a composer's brain for a while. Nonetheless, I saw the freshness of what was coming out, and I felt a sense of purpose in what I was doing. And a number of other bits of information that have surfaced about my family's background, genealogy, which have been very interesting to me, really led me more deeply into writing music that is really more derived from that part of the world than from the part of the world I've spent most of my life living in. So, to be very clear about this, before talking about anything else, I'm not an Iranian composer. I'm an American composer with a Persian memory, with a Middle Eastern memory, if you will. And that memory has now been invoked full force with the writing of a number of pieces.
Okay, we're back with Andre Raffel, guest conductor for our May 14th concert at the Bardavon. Andre, I'm wondering what's next for you? What other things are you working on that you might like to share with our audience?
Well, we're at that point in the season where the season is just winding down now, of course. And so now thoughts turn to summer. And for me, that means a couple of summer festivals, notably the Sunflower Music Festival, which is, and there I'll be conducting 3 different programs, be leading 3 different programs. and also later the Buzzards Bay Music Festival as well. But really interesting. This will be a return for me to Sunflower. And what's fascinating about it is that the sort of theme for this year's festival is the Sunflower Music Festival 2022 and the African American Experience. And so, as part of our presentation with these three programs, we'll explore works by prominent African American composers such as George Walker, whose 100th anniversary of his birth we celebrate this year, William Grant Still, and new voices like Jessie Montgomery, alongside the standard repertoire as well. So it's really fascinating to not only return to Sunflower in Topeka, which has a great deal of history there, the place of Brown versus the Board of Education. Yeah, it's not, there's not only a lot of history in that city, but to be able to present the programs which we will there, I'm very much looking forward to.
That all sounds great. I'm very grateful for you joining us here today, giving us some time to get to know you a little better. And I'm really looking forward to getting to meet you in person and continue working on putting this program together. I just want to remind our audience that you're going to be doing a pre-concert talk at 7 p.m. on the 14th, talking a little bit more about the program. We hope you guys all join us for that. And Andre, again, it's been a real pleasure working with you so far on this, and I really look forward to doing it in person. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Likewise, Stephen.
Okay.
I grew up in a town north of Tel Aviv. My father played bassoon in the Israel Philharmonic and was also conductor of the Young Israel Philharmonic. And my mother taught literature. Our house was always a very musical house, playing music, singing, creating music together. It was a complete shock. I remember getting the phone call and I just couldn't believe it. I was 25 and I had written the Elef Symphony. It immediately in Israel, orchestras, ensembles, teachers, led to some commissions. Everyone suddenly knew who I was and was interested. I came to the US to study at Juilliard to get my doctorate. I was very drawn to studying with John Corliano, and I was fortunate that he accepted me into his studio at Juilliard. I started working with the City Music Cleveland Chamber Orchestra 5 years ago, so we bring very high-level classical music, contemporary music to areas and people that might have harder time to access this kind of level of performance. And ever since, we've been working together with much success. Jewish culture is a very broad and segmented concept. In that sense, I feel that winning the Israeli Prize for this piece that really explores a wide variety of what one might call Jewish music. I'm very touched by the fact that this piece won it, so people can get to experience what Jewish music is and can be from different parts of the world.
Okay, everyone. I'm very happy to be welcoming our next guest, soloist Lara St John, today. Thank you for joining me, Lara. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Lara will be performing Abner Dorman's Naguman Violin Concerto No. 2. Which is really exciting for us. We're really excited to be premiering the piece here with the Hudson Valley Philharmonic in this area. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about how you got connected with Abner on this piece, and any thoughts about the piece as well. How did that all come together?
Sure. Well, actually, Abner won the Azrieli Prize for Jewish music, which is based in Montreal. And so they asked me to do the premiere of it, like the world premiere kind of thing, which I ended up doing with the Ensemble Classique de Montréal, and Yoav Talmi, who's an Israeli conductor, and then we went over and did it in Warsaw, and then also in Prague. So that was kind of interesting because of you know, the whole juxtaposition of the Israeli concerto and Prague, Warsaw, etc. And then I ended up doing the recording of it as well with Boris Brott conducting, who, I don't know if you know him, but he was a giant of the Canadian sort of, I mean, he was everybody's musical uncle in Canada. And he actually died just a few days ago from a hit and run.
Oh, that's horrible.
And yeah, we're all
Sorry to hear
pretty still in shock and devastated. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Oh, that's
So,
horrible.
but yeah, it's basically Naguman. It's in a slow fast kind of concerto. So a 4-movement concerto, and it's not. It sounds like it could be old Hebrew themes. However, it's not. It's Abner just kind of started from scratch and made them up with like kind of with, well, obviously with the modal ideas of klezmer music in mind and some of those rhythms and everything. And so it's a complete original, but it's very danceable. And I mean, the 2 fast movements are great fun.
That was one of the things I really responded to when I first listened to it. Was it really did feel like you sort of knew it. It felt familiar, like it had that familiarity already. Yeah, it
feels familiar, and then and yet it's not. But but that's sort of a great thing about a concerto, about a new piece. If it already feels familiar and you're hearing it for the first time, it's kind of cool. Yeah. So yeah, it's I've done it quite a few times, and it's always a big hit as well.
Well, I'm really
the last movement is something else. I mean, it is not easy, but it's actually it's great fun to have that challenge, to put that together with the orchestra. So we'll have a great time.
Nice. So we've done some of Abner's work before, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
I think our audience is going to really love it as well.
Cool.
Lara, you began playing the violin at the age of 2, and then made your orchestral debut appearance at age 4, which is pretty amazing. Where did that happen? What did you play? And personally, I was just wondering, do you have any recordings of that day that you can look back on? Because it must be adorable.
Well, it must be adorable. That was obviously way before anybody had video cameras lying around. So there's no video of it. I have some pictures and there is one recording. Yeah. You know, to be frank, I was actually 2.5 when I started. So, I mean, considering that's a 1/5 of your life at 2.5, it is kind of, does make a difference. Yeah, it was the Bach double. I played it with my brother, and we played it with the Windsor Symphony. Windsor is, actually the only country to the south, the only city to the south of the US in Canada. It's the one that kind of just curves below Detroit. Right. So they have a little symphony to this day, and that's where I did my orchestral debut. Nice. It must have sounded terrible. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, it was a 32nd size violin, or a 16th or something like that. I mean, it can't have done anything but squeak. But yeah, I'm sure it was pretty cute. Cool.
And now I understand you play on a very rare 18th century violin. That's full size.
Yeah. It is full size. Actually, it's kind of a big one, which is great for me because I've got quite the wingspan. But it's a 1779 Guadagnini from Turin, Italy. But actually, I am just about to buy another one to have as a second from your general area. I was up in Woodstock a couple of weeks ago, and I'm gonna be buying one by David Wiebe.
Nice.
So yeah.
Wow, that's a nice local connection that I knew nothing about. That's very cool.
Yeah, his whole workshop and everything is up right near you guys. So
it's great.
Beautiful area.
Very, very nice. Our audience may remember you from when you performed with the HVP back in 2007, which is when we first met.
It's a while ago, though.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I was surprised.
Years. Oh my
I
God.
was surprised it was that long ago, actually. Yeah. You performed Crigliano's Red Violin Suite, which is a piece of music that we talked about this briefly. I always kind of associated you with it, but you really went on to have a lot of history with that piece, and I imagine it's kind of a really very dear piece to you.
Oh, it is. Yeah, very much so. I did the Chinese premiere of his Red Violin Chaconne, which is, there's 3 of them really. There's the Concerto, of which the Chaconne is the first movement, and then there's the Suite, which is only for strings and percussion. And that's the one we did. And I mean, I've told him this and he tells me I'm crazy, but I actually prefer the Suite to the Chaconne. And I was just so taken with it when we did it up there in Hudson Valley. And I ended up putting it on a recording, I think only a few months later, with the Royal Philharmonic in London. And I paired it.
Piece of music.
It really is. It's I don't know. To me, it speaks a little more than the chaconne. I mean, they're both great. They're both John and they're both red violin. But you know, this one is closer to my heart. So yeah, that was really a very cool occasion. And then since then, we went to Japan to do the premiere of his concerto there, and you know, he wrote a piece dedicated to me called Stomp. So it's been 15 years of very good friendship as well. So that's cool.
That's really nice. Yeah. I wanted to share something with our audience that they may not know about you. Ever since you played first with the HVP, every year, I look forward to getting your the holiday season where I get your annual Christmas card.
Yeah.
And I'd love you to just tell our audience a little something about what makes your Christmas card so special every year.
Well, I guess in the past 12 years, what's made it really special is I have a little dragon. I live with an iguana. He's my pet and he's my little sweetie. And so every year he has a new sort of concept, a little costume or outfit or something that has something to do with Christmas. And I send out, you know, well over 1,800 cards actually, which is completely bonkers and so silly. And it takes me a month. And then right now with all the crazy stuff with COVID and the postal service and everything, there's somebody, you know, in Harlem told me 3 days ago, hey, I just got your Christmas card. I'm like, what? How is that possible? So they're still probably, I mean, some will probably arrive next year, but anyway, I do my best. And I don't know, it's kind of a fun tradition that I have to, I don't know, just cheer folks up with a really cute iguana.
They're awesome. I have a collection of them somewhere in my office, and we're actually going to flash an image of them so the audience can see. They're just the most fun. It's something we've looked forward to every year, getting those.
Yeah, and I'm especially well known with people's kids. Like, so even though I haven't met, just for example, James Ennis, he was playing at Carnegie the other day, and I met his kids for the first time, and his wife was like, you know, the iguana cards? This is Iguana Mama. So I'm like Iguana Mama to a lot of kids who really like them.
That's great. That's a great thing to be associated with kids.
I certainly don't mind.
Yeah. Lara, what else do you have coming up? Any projects you're working on? Anything you want to share with our audience? Tell them what you have happening.
Yeah, in September, I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be releasing a CD, an album. I don't know if you say CD anymore. I guess you just say album because how many people have the player. But it's actually all solo violin music, all by women. So that's coming up in September, and I'm always working on, you know, something or other. I do a lot of video work as well. And yeah, this summer, lots of fun stuff happening. The Hudson Valley, and then I'm premiering actually right after Hudson Valley a new concerto by Martin Kennedy in Omaha, Nebraska, and he and John are good friends. So John's still wondering if he's going to make it to the show because he doesn't like traveling that much anymore. But anyway, there's that. Then in the summer I'm going to Israel actually to play for the first time to play the Dorman there.
Nice.
And yeah, lots of exciting stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a real pleasure having you here today, joining us. I'm so looking forward to seeing you again in person and to hearing this piece because it's just a beautiful piece of music. You'll be joining us May 14th at the Bardavon. Lara, thanks so much for your time. Again, look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks very much.
All righty. I hope you all enjoyed today's interviews and look forward to seeing you all at the Bardavon for our next HVP concert, Theme and Variations on May 14th. Don't forget to get there early for the 7 p.m. pre-concert talk with Andre Raffel. See you all then.